Thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective, the podcast with subject matter experts in marketing. When you think of the trends in digital marketing, one of the most impactful can be not only the strategies you have online, but also in attracting and maintaining the right kind of team that works together to support those efforts. Zach Morrison is the President of Elite SEM and a subject matter expert in performance-driven digital marketing. And on this episode, we'll discuss some keys to dealing with everything from attribution to the new triopoly to building an elite team. So let's listen to an elite president with a digital shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. So, Zach, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective. Now, the first question I wanted to ask is, can you tell us a little bit about your career and how it is you got to your position as President of Elite SEM?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. And the story is a pretty interesting one, or at least I think it is. So hopefully everybody else will think it's interesting. So in 2004, I was considering a career in the finance world, whether it was going to be investment banking or private equity or who knows what. And I took a job with Citigroup Smith Barney as a summer internship. I was actually in college at the time. And it was kind of the internship that's supposed to lead up to your career. I had to wear a suit every single day, and I didn't do any work that was of any real substance, and I hated it. And at the same exact time, a friend of mine had dropped out of college to chase a girl to New York, and he met a gentleman named Ben Kirshner, who was starting a digital marketing agency. And Ben was the first person to ever sell coffee online, and really his coffee business took off through his abilities in search marketing and in digital marketing, and he was going to start an agency. I realized very quickly that I hated wearing a suit every day, and I wanted to do something different and a startup, and New York sounded pretty amazing. So I got introduced to Ben and took the leap of faith and moved up to New York after some time kind of working remotely, and we began the business there. He started in 2004. I moved up to New York in 2005, and then from then till now, kind of played every role that a marketer or an agency person can play.
That's great. So, what do you see today as the hottest trends in digital and performance marketing, and what do you see the smartest advertisers doing that's really driving traffic in an ever-changing industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you kind of break it down into kind of the two questions and kind of what are the hottest trends and the best ways to drive traffic. I think when you look at the trends portion, I think if you surveyed 100 and some odd digital marketers, I think you would say 90% of them would probably answer with the word attribution or something related to attribution, whether it be marketing science or whether it's either use the word analytics or whatever it be.
Or data.
And while
People say data all the
yeah,
time to make themselves sound smarter.
yeah, and while I think it's obviously attribution is an important topic, um, it's a very big buzzword, and it's not one that I'm trying to diminish as important. It's incredibly important, but I don't look at it as kind of the one and only thing that we should be thinking about. It's also with attribution, it's in a sense a fake word, right? It's almost the concept of attribution is almost impossible. If you think about the simplicity of it, that it's the factors that lead to something. There are factors that under no circumstance will ever be able to be tracked or measured, right? I could look at 11 ads on and offline, and then my friend show up to my house with a really great watch and be like, "Hey, what's that watch?" And he'll be like, "Oh, it's a Shinola watch," and then I go buy one, and then my 11 different connections to a brand online or offline had nothing to do with the purchase, right? It had everything to do with somebody telling me. So I think attribution is really important. What I would say, the hottest topic and trend I am seeing around attribution, because I feel like if I didn't cover it as part of this answer, it would be crazy, is I see brands that are successful that are just okay with it being 80 or 90%, and okay testing and changing their business based off of an 80%, trust score, let's call it. Because, the marketplace is getting more competitive. If you look at Facebook's financials, the vast majority of their stock growth or their revenue growth of their business is not coming through new ad units or new inventory. It's all coming through pricing. It's all about Google and all these channels are no different. They're all ramping up their pricing. And why? Because they know that they have a hot commodity. It's supply and demand. So in an increased competitive environment in a great economy, that's what's going to happen. So I think brands that are willing to take some risks in testing, especially around the word attribution, are ones that I think, and it's not just attribution, right? It's looking at lifetime value, it's looking at profitability, looking at other metrics, and taking some chances, and not necessarily looking at you know, the the history of the way the business has always been measured. You know, the thing with digital marketing is that it's not something new, right? Everything online is ripped off from something, offline or something that's existed at some point in time. Like Google is the classified ads from the newspaper, right? And I think that evolution we're seeing again, right? I think with Instagram TV coming out, Snapchat, obviously, Google's going to be, I think, really changing some things at YouTube. I think we're going to see that coming up here pretty soon. And I think we're primed for some disruption of, real disruption of TV advertising. Digital really disrupted offline, print, and those types of areas. It disrupted TV a little bit. But I think with, what's going on online in terms of video and how it's changing, obviously the Netflixes and Hulu's of the world are a big part of this. I just think that there is a lot of momentum right now, and I think that that's a real possibility coming up here soon. I think a lot of the brand advertisers are understanding that they can achieve that same online, and also the performance marketers are saying, "Wow, we can get some of the scale that the TV guys have and get our performance as well." So I think there's a lot of momentum in video that could be a real disruption to TV.
Agreed. And you think of the old days, to your earlier point. I mean, it used to be all the big ideas were focused around being the most creative, and there's been such a shift towards making, looking at marketing performance as being whatever is the most attributable, which is can be a tough place to find yourself in. So, a lot of us have enjoyed just thinking of digital advertising for years as sort of a duopoly with Google and Facebook. But obviously, there's one player big enough to jump in the mix and really kind of, take a stance and make a footprint, and that's Amazon. So when you think about how consumers search and research and purchase, what approach do you give advertisers in taking with these channels individually while still trying to manage them cohesively?
Yeah, I mean, look, the triopoly is not something that's coming; it's something that's here, and that's one thing we tell our clients. What I actually tell clients is that the quadopoly is what they really actually need to be thinking about. If they don't have a triopoly, and these are obviously for commerce businesses, right? A triopoly strategy already, they're behind. The quadopoly, whether that's going to be AT&T and AppNexus, whether that's going to be the Verizon, AOL, Oath as the fourth player, or more than likely it's going to be somebody that we don't know. So if you think about it, right, like 7 or 8 years ago, we said, Google, it's a monopoly. Boom, Facebook comes. Facebook started. We say, it starts to be the duopoly. Boom, Amazon comes. So I think, first and foremost, if you don't have a triopoly strategy, you're behind. And if you're an e-commerce business or an omni-channel retailer, not if your strategy of I'm not gonna just not being on Amazon is your Amazon strategy, that isn't one, right? You need to if you're not going to be on Amazon, you need to have a strategy, a real brand protection strategy, a real pricing strategy, a real differentiation strategy, a real marketing strategy, or Amazon will crush you. That is their goal. They don't care about any of the other things that traditional advertisers have cared about, because they have their hands in both sides of the cookie jar, the advertising side and your product, your product side as well. So I think it's hugely important that your Amazon strategy is a very detailed one and not one that is we're not going to be on Amazon, or yeah, we'll just throw a couple of products on there and try a couple of things out. This is a real player. By 2020, I think the stats are that it's going to be 20 some $billion in advertising revenue. Yeah, I mean that's going to have them starting to catch up to the other side of the duopoly, but that growth will be faster growth than Google or Facebook ever experienced. So it is a real threat, a real opportunity, if you want to look at it that way, uh, for marketers. Both, digital marketing professionals, they need to understand it, and for brands and retailers.
So where do you tell performance marketers to start aligning ad campaigns, with and against Amazon?
Yeah, I think and that's going to be it's a challenge because Amazon is not like the other channels, right? That they're used to advertising on. Now the mechanisms for doing advertising on Amazon, yeah, those are very similar. But what I'm getting at is the kind of the behind the scenes, right? In order to have an effective Amazon advertising strategy, you have to have an unbelievable merchandising strategy, product development strategy, pricing strategy. You can, in some respects, through Facebook advertising and even Google advertising, get away with whether it's just having a great product and a great marketing campaign and and really wow a consumer, but the Amazon world doesn't live like that, right? Because Amazon's controlling both sides. They're controlling the buy box and the advertising box as well, right? In Google and Facebook world, let's just kind of say that they're just controlling the advertising box. They have nothing to do with what you sell or how much you price it for or what you say about that product. It's a very different world. So what I would say to performance marketers is you keep your performance marketing hat on, but you also need to put your marketing hat, your merchandising hat, your just overall product brand person hat on in order to be a successful Amazon marketer.
Last year, the Today Show had a focus on debunking millennial misconceptions on how millennials live and work. And obviously, you've got a lot of millennials who are digital marketers that work for Elite. And you and the team were featured in one of the episodes. And when you think about team culture, which is a big part of your hiring process, how do you as a marketing management leader, connect the pieces of the puzzle to build a successful team?
Yeah, I mean, look, we were honored that Fortune named us the best place to work in America for millennials, and then we were featured on the Today Show, and I think it gave us a great opportunity to dispel some of these misconceptions that are out there. I myself am actually on the upper end, but I am a millennial, and I think the problem is that and I mentioned this on the Today Show, the world is very different today. And the problem is that employers are expecting human beings to be the same that they were for the past 50 or 80 years when the world is completely different. So they look at this workforce, this millennial workforce. I hear things like lazy, I hear things like entitled and those types of things. Sure, in every generation there were lazy and entitled people, right? But in the millennial world, we have a voice, right? We have a platform for that. I talk about my grandfather a lot. He worked for the city of Philadelphia, hated his job, but he did it every day. And he went to work and he worked there for 40 years and he never did anything else because that was the norm. That's not the norm today. Our employees know their colleagues in California as well as they know their colleagues in the state next to them, right? If they're in New York, they know their colleagues in California as well as they know their colleagues in Pennsylvania. They're just learning so much and seeing different things and experiencing things at a faster rate than any human being ever has, right? With whether it's social media and technology, they're just experiencing things at an alarming rate, at a quicker rate, and they're transferring that into the workplace. And if employers want to try to force employees into a bubble, Well, look, yeah, they're going to not like their workforce. They're going to have issues with the millennials, but their business also isn't going to be successful. If you look at the most successful organizations today, they're the ones that are embracing the millennial mindset that, hey, why do I need to be in an office every day? There's some jobs you do, right? But not every single one, right? I have new ideas. I want to be able to contribute. I'm socially conscious. All of these things are occurring in this generation outside of the workplace. So the fact that employers think that they're not going to, occur in the workplace, that's why they're failing. That's why there are these misconceptions. I think these misconceptions are incredibly false. I see we have 330 employees. And I see people who work nights, who work weekends, who have incredible ambition, who work hard for every single dollar that they earn and every promotion that they earn. So I think the misconception comes from the fact that employers have not adapted, have not changed, and refuse to understand that the world is different. So therefore, being an employer needs to be different.
So you as an employer can confirm that millennials are not part of an alien race.
Well, nah, maybe they might be,
Yeah.
but they might. I didn't say that. They might. We might be a little nuts.
What was Al Roker like? I think he went through a culture interview. Did he get the job?
I think his job pays a little bit more than the jobs that we offer. So I think he chose to not accept the internship despite being probably qualified, and definitely qualified for our either our social division or definitely our marketing team as well. But no, he was a great guy. He has an unbelievable personality that you see on TV, and he's exactly like that in person. To be honest with you, I think he's kind of has this corny funny on TV, but he's actually really is funny in person, and he's sarcastic, and was giving us all a bunch of us a hard time, and it was a lot of fun. He was a great guy and a great sport, and he also was a great steward of our brand, which we're grateful for.
Well, speaking of the weather and the weatherman and how not only the weather but the job market has gotten hot, and I know that there's a lot more inquiries that all marketers get today. I know I get a ton more than I have in a lot of years. How are you seeing the hiring market today for talented digital marketers to add to your team?
Look, I mean, the economy is in a place it hasn't been before. It's a hot job market just in general. Unemployment rates are incredibly low, and we're in a hot industry where a lot of the new jobs are being created. And I think it goes back to the millennial misconception answer I gave around a new age workforce. So I think we probably have like 30 or 40 jobs open at any given time, right? And we're a 330 person company. So you're talking about like looking to add 10% more to our headcount, like at all times. We're not having trouble recruiting. And I think the reason why uh, is we're continuing to change and adapt our business. Just because we were named best place to work in the country from millennials, last year, doesn't mean that that's going to be the recipe for success next year. So we're continuing to adapt. We're continuing to ask for feedback from our candidates, continuing to ask for feedback from our employees, and continuing to change and continuing to adapt, whether that's creating new roles, creating new benefits, getting rid of old ways of doing things, bringing in new technology, bringing in new ideas. But the thing we tell all of our employees is that change is the only constant. And I think in the old employee world and old employer world, change was a very scary thing. We embrace it, we push it, and I think that the workforce today, which is kind of predominantly millennials, the ones that are in demand, they love that, and they want to be a part of something that's growing and thriving and new, but also that they have a say, that they have a voice, and that it's a healthy environment that they get to enjoy the people that they work with. The stat that I'm most proud of all of the stats that we have internally about culture and people is we did a survey. We said, you know, do you like your colleagues? Do you like the people you work with? Not do you like Elite? Do you like the people you work with? And 98% of the people said yes. I love the people I work
That's
with.
so rare. That's great.
And that, look, people don't quit really companies, right? In a sense, they quit their managers, right? They quit, their career path. They quit, just because of like what's going on in their business with the people. And I think that's what that stat's all about, right? If we have great people, great managers, and a great culture, right, it's gonna attract great talent and retain them as well.
So we've talked a little bit about search, we've talked a little bit about social, as well as some of the areas in display and commerce coming up. And let's talk a little bit about email. And what value do you think marketers should put on email marketing today? I mean, obviously, Elite SEM believes in the channel, considering your recent acquisition of an email program management company, and it's a powerful channel that we use every day. But where do you think that email should be part of an overall strategy for marketers?
Yeah, you remember how earlier I mentioned that like all things old become new again in a sense, especially in like our world. I think email is one of those things. We acquired Email Aptitude a few months ago. ESP agnostic, full service email marketing agency. Everything from strategy, creative, all the way to the end of hitting the send button and the technical side. And I think what we've seen over time is that email is still the one of the highest revenue channels for brands. We see it's still one of the best ROI for brands, and therefore brands and company and people have gotten kind of lazy and complacent, and they've made it just like, okay, we'll do this when we have a promotion or a new product, and that's it. And that's not fully using the force of this amazing channel. And I think folks that are and brands that are reinventing their mindset around email and thinking about, well, let's think about email, right? CRM is the core of email, right? Email is just an extension of CRM. But what is also an extension of CRM? Facebook. Why? Because everything about Facebook is about the audience. What's the newest thing that Google's pushing? Audiences, which is an extension of CRM. Everything is kind of relating back to CRM. So I think brands that are looking at email as just like this one thing, I think they need to look at CRM and their audience and say, how are all the ways that we're going to connect with our audience in an amazing way? And I look at companies like Movement Watches and Pure Vita bracelets and Chubbies. These guys have the most unbelievable email programs that not only acquire customers but keep their customers engaged in their audience, in their universe, in their community. And I think there is a huge opportunity for brands to stop just treating email like a promotion and stop just treating it like, hey, we got this new product here, and really treat it as a way to connect with their audiences and different audiences in different manners. And I think the other thing here with email that we're looking at very in depthly is we think a lot of the skills and a lot of the learnings from email are going to be able to apply to some very, very cutting edge marketing channels, whether that's voice, whether that's messaging and chatbots. Those are the things that we're kind of working on innovation from our email division. Are those areas, whether it's website overlays for email acquisition, whether it's messaging, chatbots, and so on and so forth from there. And voice is, I think, a lot of some things that you think about in email, right? Concise content, and those types of things are going to play a role in voice.
So, Zach, where do you want to see marketing and performance marketing go over the next several years? Kind of put your futurist hat on.
Um, you know, I think put my short term and long term futures hat on. I think my short term futures hat, what I'd like to see is digital marketing become an integrated marketing avenue, and it's not Facebook advertising, it's not Google advertising, it's not YouTube advertising, or even Amazon advertising. It's mediums. We have video, we have search, right? And they're in those places, and those things live in a lot of different places. But at the end of the day, we're trying to connect with an audience, and having an integrated approach to your to brands having an integrated approach to their digital marketing, especially performance marketing, I believe is just the absolute key to success. And that integrated approach starts with something as legacy as email and goes as far as today's world, all the innovation that's occurring in social and voice and those things. So I think that's the key, kind of in the short term futurist where I'd like to see it. I think from a long term perspective, where the society is going, and this is not any original thought here, with just kind of this on demand world. I think and you're seeing it with Amazon, right? And you're seeing it with all the ad units that are in the different channels, where you can go into Facebook and you can kind of a lead ad, or kind of a dynamic ad, and Google rolling out shopping actions where you're going to be able to kind of buy right then and there, and then obviously the Amazon world. I think my futurist hat tells me that there is going to be that this triopoly and quadopoly is going to be disrupted again. Uh, not in the longest, not that long of term. I think that people adapt to, like they did to digital marketing and Google and buying things, from an e-commerce perspective, and then they changed again, and then they adapted to now people are buying things on their phone. We can all remember, like 3 years ago, nobody bought anything on their phone. Now everybody buys everything on their phone. I think we're changing rapidly, so I think voice, and there's some other technology that honestly it doesn't even exist today, but it's going to exist in the next few years, that is going to rapidly change the way that people interact online and the way that they consume online. And I think that's going to disrupt, in some respects, Google and Facebook and Amazon, who's kind of newer as well. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I think this immersive experience uh, that a person would like to have online doesn't really exist, right? Because you're going to look, Amazon knows what you buy, and Google knows what your intent is, and Facebook kind of knows who you are and who you're friends with, right? But when is somebody going to really care about all of those things at the same time? Meaning, like, as the consumer, like, I'm going to want to go to one place to expedite my life even more, that I can connect with who I want to connect with, buy who I want to buy, and understand who I want to learn from, all at the same exact time. So that's kind of I think that there's some crazy idea from somebody who's way smarter than me that's going to disrupt those three, and bring a totally new flavor to all of them combined.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for being on A Shark's Perspective today. I sincerely appreciate your time and insight. And how do people find out more about you and the Elite SEM team?
Yeah, well, obviously, visit elitesem.com. The blog, I put out a good amount of content through the blog and just some other channels. Uh, Probably not the most active guy in most of the social media areas, but LinkedIn is probably the most active place, for me. So, anybody who wants to connect, whether they want to talk about digital marketing, whether they want to talk about kind of building a growth company, they want to talk about M&A, they want to talk about company culture, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love to connect with anybody and kind of chat more.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
So there was my conversation with Zach Morrison, the president of Elite SEM and a subject matter expert in performance-driven digital marketing. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from that conversation. First, when you look at hot digital trends, attribution often comes up in discussion. But you see a lot of brands that are okay with an 80 or 90% likelihood and confidence level in measurement. Brands that are taking some risk in testing and looking at other metrics and taking some chances are very often highly successful. Second, if you don't have a triopoly strategy today, then you are behind. If not being on Amazon is your strategy, then that isn't one. You need to have a well thought out and detailed strategy around brand, pricing, differentiation, and a real marketing strategy. In Zach's words, you need all of that or else Amazon will crush you. Third, the job market for marketers is smoking hot. Make sure to evaluate your hiring process and look at new roles and new ideas for your teams in order to grow. Challenge yourself to look at ways to retain employees when they embrace your culture. And most importantly, remember that people don't quit companies per se, people quit their managers. Got a question? please feel free to find me on LinkedIn or send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this show regarding another one of the many components that makes up marketing today. So it's time to go be elite in your marketing, and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.